I'm smiling with my eyes. Stop it.
Smizing.
Stop. You're not allowed to look at me if we're going to do that. Stop it. I hate when you do that.
Why?
It's so weird. It freaks me out. How do you do that?
I learned from the best.
Tyra Banks.
Tyra Banks. Shine bright, shine far, don't be shy. Be a star. Okay.
Be a star.
Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy. I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And we're talking about chapter 10 today, A Sword and a Summons.
This week we start off with a little epigraph about Verity. Well, not necessarily just Verity, but sort of the idea that every culture seems to have some sort of
folklorish
deity.
Guardian?
Yeah, guardian that helps them in a time of need. And for the Out Islanders, that is Icefire.
Yeah, and then for the Six Duchies, it is the Elderlings, a mythical race of ancient beings that actually did help. They used to be allies with them.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of in here. It's not attributed to anybody, but we're assuming, again, that it's Fitz talking.
I don't know, though, because I feel like this sort of excerpt gives Verity all of the credit for rousing the Elderling carved dragons. But Fitz did that. And Fitz knows he did that. So why would he?
He would not give himself credit, though.
I guess. But I don't know. It just feels like a weird thing to specifically attribute to Verity, knowing that Verity did not do that.
But he's also going back and forth between trying to write a history of everything and then being upset that he's putting himself into it. So maybe he's just trying to erase himself.
I guess there's also the thing where he keeps talking about...
And he's supposed to be dead, too, during this time.
Yeah, but he keeps talking about how he doesn't want to lie.
Yeah.
And this feels like a blatant lie. So I don't know. It just feels like a weird thing to put in there. Fitz is the one writing, but I guess maybe, like you said, he just is hiding himself from the story. But also something that we kind of skipped over, the Icefire bit. That's foreshadowing for what's to come, obviously. But also talking about how the Out Islanders believe that Icefire is a dragon that will protect them in a time of need.
Well, they say a creature
Sure.
who dwells deep in the heart of the glacier that cloaks the heart of Island Islavjal. They swear that when earthquakes shake their island home, it is Icefire rolling restlessly in his chill dreams deep within his icebound lair. So they don't mention dragon in here at all.
True.
But they know he's a big creature that would save them.
Yeah. And I find this detail really interesting that Icefire is actually the dragon's name. And the Elderlings really did used to live in the Mountain Kingdom. So everybody's right about these beliefs of these creatures.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting to me that now it's sort of folklore instead of fact. And you would think that since Verity was kind of correct about the Elderlings, people would think that maybe there's credence to other myths or tales, but it doesn't feel like that. It kind of feels like everybody has their own belief system.
Yeah. Well, we're back in the cottage here, and things have kind of calmed down, especially after that emotional retelling of Fitz going to see Molly and Beric. The fool stayed on, but in the days that followed, he studiously avoided any serious topics or tasks. I fear I followed his example. Telling him of my quiet years seemed to settle those old ghosts. I should have been content to slip back into my old routines, but instead a different sort of restlessness itched. A changing time and time to change. Changer, the catalyst. The words and the thoughts that went with them wound through my days and tangled my dreams at night. I was no longer tormented by my past so much as taunted by the future. Looking back over what I had made of my own youth, I suddenly found myself much concerned for how Hap would spend his years. It suddenly seemed to me that I had wasted all the years when I should have been preparing the lad to face a life on his own. So he's kind of left to his own devices. He and the fool kind of go throughout their routines-ish, but take it easy. They don't do too much, and it gives Fitz time to ponder mostly his future and the future of Hap, who he's concerned that he hasn't really taught anything at all. Hap is completely fine if he wants to live on his own in a cottage in the middle of nowhere. But other than that, being with people, he hasn't prepared him for that. So Fitz is kind of feeling a little, I don't know, like he didn't do a good job.
Yeah, he's just now sort of realizing that it takes more to prepare someone for life than just making sure that they know the basics.
Yeah.
And that he didn't really do much more than that. And he's starting to feel bad. But there's also this sort of restlessness undertone that has been building since the very first chapter, it seems.
Yeah.
Where Fitz is really outgrowing the space that he's in. And he's realizing that this can't continue. He can't keep being here. But he also can't leave yet. He has to wait. He has this feeling of needing to stay because Hap's not here, and he needs to help Hap and prepare Hap a little bit more. And he feels this sort of duty to make sure that Hap is going to be okay.
Yeah, and he says that the need to apprentice Hap well began to keep him awake at night. But if the fool noticed any of that, he didn't really show it because he was just busy carving, and pretty much any piece of furniture or wood that was around the cabin has some sort of scrawl or carving in it now. The activities of the water sprites on my rain barrel would have made a guardsman blush. So there's just a bunch of fanciful carvings all around different things. Fitz chooses to work for himself as well, toiled indoors as much as out despite the fine weather. Part of it was that I felt I needed a thoughtful time, but the greater share was that the wolf was slow to recover his strength. I knew that my watching over him would not hasten his healing, but I could not chase away my anxiety for him. So we get a little bit about Night Eyes here as well, how he's just more withdrawn, more somber, more thoughtful, and they're not
Right.
sharing a ton of thoughts. Night Eyes is still withdrawn, and he's just taken to like lazing about the cabin a bit and like staring at Fitz once in a while, obviously deep in thought, but Fitz doesn't get any idea of what he's thinking about until later.
Right. He mentioned specifically that he doesn't reach out to ask either, because if Night Eyes wanted to share those thoughts, he would. So there's no point in questing to ask or
Right.
to see what's going on. He figures Night Eyes needs his time.
And he says that gradually Night Eyes did regain some of his old activities, but the spring was gone out of him. Like they would go hunting at night, but he'd be content to let Fitz's arrow do the work.
Yes.
And they'd both pretend that they were going slow because of the fool.
Right. He's no longer challenging himself.
These changes troubled me, but I did my best to keep my concerns to myself. All he needed was time to heal, I told myself, and recalled that the hot days of summer had never been his best time. When autumn came, he would recover his old vigor. So they were settling into a comfortable routine, all three of them. There were tales and stories still. It wasn't like it was a full-on somber affair, especially with the fool there. But they didn't really touch any too serious talks. But Fitz does eventually tell the fool about the witted encounter that Hap had in that one village and about the minstrel that Starling had told him about as well.
And Chade's retelling of what has been going on.
Yeah, with Prince Dutiful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So he is, letting the fool in, and the fool isn't listening the same way as he was to what has happened to Fitz. In this, Fitz describes him as someone taking up threads to put into a loom.
Right.
So he's definitely like picking through the stories a little bit more.
We know that the fool is going to become Lord Golden and a courtier at Buckkeep in the noble section. So he's probably gathering any kind of rumors and kind of hint of what the life is like in the Six Duchies right now, so he can be armed with that knowledge going into the court life.
Right. Because it's better to know what unrest is going on before accidentally saying something that puts you on the wrong side of some political faction.
Mm-hmm.
So he is really sort of taking to heart those things and probably in this moment, like you said, crafting Lord Golden.
Yeah. So the beginning part of this chapter is a lot of the catch up and the things that Fitz kind of put aside in the previous chapters of like, oh, I'll get to that later.
Yeah.
And, oh, I'll tell the fool that later. So the next section, he talks about how they tried rooster feathers in the crown one time, didn't work, so they obviously knew it was wrong. And then also the fool sat down to paint the crown, sat there for a while, and then put it away saying, it's not right. It shouldn't be like that yet. I don't need to do anything to it yet. So it's just like small things that they're catching up on. It's not the serious stuff anymore. It's like, okay, all the important stuff is out of the way. Let's just spend time together.
Yes, let's get things done. But there's sort of a odd quality to this time. It feels both rushed and not at the same time.
Maybe it's because of the way it's written.
It could be. It could also be that's like the feel of what Fitz is feeling. It's like supposed to further amplify Fitz feeling like this is done, but it's not done yet.
Right.
But Fool takes us into the next step by announcing one night that he is going to leave the next day.
No, why? Oh, it is the life of a white prophet. I must be about predicting the future, saving the world, all those minor chores. Besides, you've run out of furniture for me to carve on. No, really. Cannot you stay at least a few more days? At least stay until Hap returns. Meet the boy. Actually, I have stayed far longer than I should, especially since you insist you cannot go with me when I leave. Unless, he sat up hopefully, you have changed your mind? I shook my head. I have not. I can scarcely go off and abandon my home. I must be here when Hap comes back. Ah, yes, he sagged back into his chair, his apprenticeship. And you do have chickens to care for. The mockery in his voice stung. It may not seem much of a life to you, but it's mine, I pointed out sourly. He grinned at having needled me. I am not starling, my dear. I do not disparage any man's life. Consider my own, and tell me what height I look down from. No. I go to my own tasks, as dull as they must seem to one who has a whole flock of chickens to tend and rows of beans to hoe. My own tasks are just as weighty. I've a flock of rumors to share with Chade, and rows of new acquaintances to cultivate at Buckkeep. I felt a twinge of envy. I expect they will all be glad to see you again. He shrugged. Some, I suppose. Others were just as glad to see me go, and most will not recall me at all. Most verging on all if I'm clever. So we get a little bit of what, for the first time readers through, we get a little bit of what Fool must do in Buckkeep. Because every time in this book, he's been saying, hey, let's go to Buckkeep together. We got stuff to do. And now this is the first time he said what he plans on doing.
Right. And it's not really a whole plan. It's just...
No. I got to meet new people, and I got to share rumors.
Yeah, I have rumors to share, which, tells you nothing if you're a first-time reader.
Right.
Which is very on brand for Beloved. But it's really interesting here that we have sort of this old argument almost at this point of you need to come with me, Fitz. It's fine. And Fitz pointing out that he can't just leave Hap behind. And I personally am a little frustrated with both Night Eyes and the Fool because they both sort of keep pushing Fitz to just go back to Buckkeep. But Hap does need him. And it's so odd to me that they're all like, oh yeah, I guess the boy in his apprenticeship. And it's like,
and your chickens.
Yeah. It's like, no, but actually that's like, I will stand up for Fitz on this one. That's a good choice. You should not leave a 14-year-old to come back to a house abandoned, especially when he has trauma around that. So maybe let's be nice to Hap, Fool.
And the Fool does say eventually, no, it is best I leave tomorrow. You'll follow me soon enough. Don't count on that, I warned him. But I must. The times demand it of both of us. So now it switches again into, kind of like an old conversation, the White Prophet and the Catalyst and how serious it is and their connection and what they must do.
Yes, and honestly, this sort of conversation is on par. This is something that they always seem to fall into, especially whenever Beloved brings up being a white prophet and needing to do white prophet things. It's really interesting because although he always talks in a jokey tone, he's being truthful to Fitz.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that is truly genuinely what he's doing, and maybe even a little bit truly how he feels about it. It's mostly just a chore that he has to do. I mean, I think there's a little bit more pride in it than that. But it also, whenever you're doing something you like doing and then have to leave it early because of something, it doesn't feel great. So I could see how that sort of is leaching into this. But Fitz never takes it seriously. I just don't understand. He never.
I think he does. I think he truly believes that the fool believes it and that he will help his friend, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he can grant himself the importance of being the one it relies on.
Yeah. Okay. It just is odd to me because Fitz always plays along. He always just goes, okay, well, if you're this, why not that? And, and asking the questions and as though he believes, but then everything inside his mind internally makes it feel like this isn't real. This is just a game we play.
Well, think about what he does as the catalyst. In the first trilogy, all the fool has to ensure is that Fitz survives, basically.
Yeah.
So Fitz is obviously going to be like, yeah, sure, I changed the world. No, I just wanted to live.
Yeah.
And the fool's like, yeah, that's the point. And Fitz is like, yeah, sure, buddy. And this one is, it's not like, hey, you have to go on a quest. It's like, hey, protect your son and your king's son.
Yeah.
Because they're going into the mouth of the enemy. Also, save him in this first book.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I don't know. And then the last one is, oh, go chase after your daughter who was kidnapped. Yeah, Fitz is going to choose to do all those things. It's not like the fool bullied him into going on a quest that wasn't to his liking.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in that way, it kind of makes me wonder, is the white prophet necessary then if the catalyst's life is on the trajectory to just do those things anyway?
I mean, the fool prompted him at certain junctions, gave him a little poem and Fitz fixes, Fitz, fat suffices. Things like that, little warnings to help him through sticky situations.
Yeah.
Gave him the purge herb.
That's true.
There's certain things that the fool has done that have helped and kept Fitz going through.
That's true.
And now with the skill connection, as somebody pointed out, it had to be renewed in a couple chapters ago for the future.
True.
To keep the world on the correct path. So I think they are necessary together. And we get that one story of the white prophet and the catalyst. It was an old white prophet who had a young girl as a catalyst, and they were trying to bring water to something, right?
That's true, yeah.
And even in those stories, it kind of seems like the white prophet isn't doing anything, right?
Yeah.
Just trying to make the catalyst study stuff, but the girl just wants to play in the desert and play with the desert plants.
Yeah.
And eventually the white prophet's like, oh, wait, the catalyst was doing this all along. But if they had never gone to that, remote cabin and been bored, the catalyst might not have run off. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's something that just personally interests me, where I continue to think over and over again.
Interaction, how much is necessary?
What is it really doing? Is the catalyst real? I mean, clearly whatever Fitz does truly does affect the plot of the world and at large. So that's really interesting. And it seems as though Beloved does know that about Fitz and continue to place that importance on Fitz when nobody else can recognize it. So I don't know. Maybe it's just to keep the catalyst humble to have a white prophet. I don't know. But here we do have sort of this conversation again, and Fool is saying, I wish I could stay, but I actually do have stuff to do as a white prophet, and that stuff.
You're going to be following behind as well.
You're going to be there. And then Fitz says, well, isn't there somebody else who could do that for you?
Yeah, let somebody else save the world this time. Isn't there another white prophet?
And
he's trying to joke, which it would be a kind of nice little quip if that wasn't the case.
Yeah. As somebody who has no background knowledge at all, just knows that the fool says they are a white prophet or the white prophet. it is kind of a funny joke to be like, well, can't there be another white prophet? He doesn't understand the whole background. But Beloved doesn't really take it as a joke. He sort of,
No, because he's seen it in the future, he
yeah.
says.
Do not even mention that future. It bodes ill for me that there is even a seed of that thought in your mind. For truly, there is another who would love to claim the mantle of the white prophet and set the world into a course that she envisions. From the beginning, I have struggled against her pull, yet in this turning of the world, her strength waxes. Now you know what I hesitated to speak of more openly. I shall need your strength, my friend. The two of us together might be enough. After all, sometimes all it takes is a small stone in a rut for a wheel to lurch out of its track. And I just want to point out the do not even mention that future means that there is a future in which the white woman, does succeed, and she is the prophet of that age.
Of course. Yeah.
Which is kind of scary. I get why he is kind of panicked about that.
And so again, they have a conversation of Fitz is like, oh, that doesn't sound like a good experience for the stone. And the fool's like, don't worry, you will survive it. I know you must. Hence I bend all my strength toward that goal, that you will live.
That line, I bend all my strength toward that goal. Does that imply that there is some sort of supernatural ability that Beloved has as White Prophet?
I don't think so.
Or just that all of their brain power is spent?
Yeah, I think that's a phrase of just like, that is the path that I'm trying to strive for, that you are living.
Life.
Yeah.
So like I'm pulling away from other things that I also find to be somewhat important because it's most important that you live.
Yeah, I think so. Fitz eventually asks, who is this woman you speak of? Do I know her? And the fool is like, no, you don't know her. And I knew of her. I don't specifically know her. She had already left when I went to what he's talking about is Claris. So he talks again about the intro to his life, how he was born and to two fathers who were brothers and his mother. And he got sent off because they realized that he had the white blood in him. He got sent off to this school to learn and everything like that. But she had already gone. She was already declared the white prophet. So we learned that whole story again. It's kind of repeated. And I found it interesting in here that they mentioned that he was educated and cherished there. Because reading the final trilogy, it always seemed to me like, oh, I always knew Claris was bad and I ran away to escape their evilness. But the way he's relating it in here is, I was sent away to a place where I could be educated and prepared for my fate. They treated me well there and more than well. They too, in their own way, cherished me. Each morning I was questioned as to what I had dreamed, and all I could recall was written down for wise men to ponder. So he's telling it like Claris was a decent place as he was growing up, basically.
I don't think that necessarily contradicts with what we find out in the final trilogy. He does say at first it was fine. Mm-hmm. It's whenever he starts saying that he is the white prophet that they start being bad. And to be fair, I mean, he gets more in depth in the final trilogy about all the stuff that has happened to him and what they did to him. But I think it's fair to say that it didn't start off that way. They did want him to be comfortable enough to stay.
Yeah.
It just got worse and worse as time goes on, which makes sense that he's sort of skimming over that to me, because I still don't think he fully wants to open up. I think this is sort of like a...
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's just my excuse for it not fully matching up, but it makes sense to me that Beloved would not want to openly share all the stuff they went through. I mean, Beloved also talks about how the trip north was long, and I'm not going to get into it, but basically I sold myself to Shrewd. And so I feel like it's just too hard to talk about. Yeah. And with what happens later, I feel like I don't know. I don't know how to explain.
No, I think you've been explaining pretty well what you think about it. So, yeah. No, I can agree. I just like that's what I get from the last trilogy is that it wasn't exactly what he describes here. So to Beloved, he's laughing and self-deprecatingly and being like, well, what a way to raise a child. I was still a boy and that all went to my head. Basically, all these wise men leaving on my every word. So I just started spouting things. I made mischief where I could, telling wild tales of flying boars and shadows that carried royal bloodlines. Each wild story I told was larger than the last, and yet I discovered a strange thing. No matter how I might try to foil my tongue, truth always hid in my utterances. Which is funny because that line is true. The flying boars, one of the stone dragons was a boar.
Right. And the shadow that carries royal blood would be Chade.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, like, Beloved truly is the white prophet, like capital everything.
Capital everything.
And it's sort of interesting to hear what that was like, because it seems as though at that point, Beloved didn't see anything out of the ordinary in what they were doing. Like it did go to their head, like it would any child, to be held in importance at a really young age and to be told your dreams mean something, and then just to see what you could get away with because you're a kid and like, oh, even if I dream about farts, does that mean something? You know, like, it's really interesting to see that side of Fool, because I think especially to Fitz, Beloved comes across as so put together and smart and sure of themselves. And so to see that like there was a time when they didn't take it very seriously and it didn't seem that important is really fun. But also interestingly, specifically, Beloved talks about how it started with just dreams at night and then turned into waking dreams that were also of importance. And they were taught to write those down because it's best to have the person who experiences it themselves write it down, because they can get it.
They can interpret it more, so they know what they saw.
Yeah. Which the waking dream aspect was a big draw to me, because that is what happens to be with the butterfly woman.
Yeah.
And so I found that really interesting that's something that happens over time. And
well, I thought the butterfly woman was a dream because she has a dream journal and keeps flipping to that.
Yes.
But B does have visions waking, but I thought that was just a dream one.
But it also, when it happens.
Oh, when it happens. Gotcha.
Is like a weird, so maybe that's not what that meant. I don't know. I just was equating them.
Yeah.
But I just found that really interesting but then I guess that would imply that some sort of prophecy was being had in the dreams of Beloved and then came true. But I don't know. I guess
not necessarily, not if you're equating like the waking dreams are the things happening.
That's true. And I guess, I mean, if we think about what happened to be, they weren't wide world things. They were just little things that would happen to be.
Yeah.
But it's odd to me because like this whole story is a little bit weird to me. Beloved goes on to talk about how whenever he said, I am the white prophet, like actually, I know I've been messing around, but like I'm never wrong and I'm the white prophet, nobody really takes that well. They think he's still messing around. They don't believe him. They let him know somebody else has been trained and selected and has left, and it's this other woman.
Calm your wild ambitions, they told me, as if anyone would ever desire to take on such a destiny. Another, they told me, already wore that mantle. She had gone forth before me to shape the future of the world as her visions prompted her. To each age, there is only one white prophet. All know that. So he was like, what am I then?
So that also came to me. What is Beloved? And what is the white woman? If there's only one white prophet per age, how are there multiple whites with visions?
Because they're breeding them. Remember? Clarice is breeding more.
Yes, but
naturally, there's only one that emerges every generation, supposedly. But in the final trilogy, B is presumably the White Prophet,
Yeah.
but they have a bunch of people who are still having visions at Claris.
Yeah. I don't know. It just feels odd to me. I don't understand how this could work. Like, why is the world spitting out a new White Prophet if there's already someone who can tell the future? You know what I mean? Like, if there's only allowed to be one. And if they are specifically breeding White Prophets and they have multiple people who can tell the future, how do they pick the one? How do they know they're picking the right one? Why can't this person? Why is it crazy that this person isn't? Is it because they don't like the future the fool is bringing forward? They don't want the fool to encourage the future they see?
Well, yeah, because at this point, remember, Claris is in charge of the servants,
Right.
and they have their own agenda, and they have been preparing Illustor since she was a child for their version of the future. They don't want somebody else who has their own agency. They're like, oh, we already have somebody out there. You don't need to worry yourself about it, fool. You know?
Right. Okay.
That's my idea, at least. Just like, don't worry about it. You know? But they can't explain to the fool, to Beloved, what he is then if he is not the White Prophet. He says that they tried to make him content with his life there. I do not think they ever dreamed I would defy them, but I did. I ran away. And I came north through ways and times I cannot even describe to you, yet north and north I made my way until I came to the court of King Shrewd Farseer. To him I sold myself in much the same way you did, my loyalty for his protection, and scarce a season had I been there before the rumor of your coming rattled that court. So this is also something that I wanted to point out, and I highlighted specifically, is because in the first book, or at least the first trilogy, we talk about when the fool arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And the language surrounding it is a little odd, where it seems like, oh, he's the newly arrived fool to King Shrewd's court, right?
Uh-huh.
And he was. And Fitz
Yeah.
was newly arrived too. So they both kind of came at the same time-ish. So they were both new. Because I think Fitz was like 9 when he's describing the fool as like the newly arrived fool or something like that.
Right. And to be fair, we don't know how active Beloved was after first selling himself
Right.
to Shrewd.
He might have just started coming out in public.
Right. And we know that Shrewd knew Beloved was a prophet. That is something that Shrewd was using sometimes and asking
Mm-hmm.
Beloved to look into futures of at certain points. So we know that he was. So there is a potential that Beloved was not out into the court scene yet. Also, Beloved
Right.
would have looked like a child. So
Yeah.
why would a child be at court events?
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes sense that Beloved wouldn't have been out at the same time. But the news of Fitz coming did precede him arriving by like a year or something, right? So, or at least a few months. So,
A few months, yeah, because he showed up at Moon's Eye Tower or whatever
right.
when he was 6 years old, and then people left, of course, but they carried rumors.
Yeah. So Fool had been at the court like half a year longer than
Yeah.
Fitz had been there.
Mm-hmm.
But Beloved also talks about how when the rumors first appeared, nobody was sure. Everybody assured him there was no bastard child. There's no way. But he knew for a fact that Fitz did exist.
Right. He leaned over suddenly and set his gloved hand to my wrist. He gripped my wrist for only an instant, and our skin did not touch, but in that moment I felt a flash of binding. I can describe it no other way. It was not the skill, it was not the wit, it was not magic at all, as I know magic. It was like that moment of double recognition that sometimes overtakes one in a strange place. I had the sense that we had sat together like this, spoken these words before, and that each time we had done so, the words had been sealed with that brief touch. I glanced away from him only to encounter the wolf's dark eyes burning into mine. What did you think of that? Is it just kind of the magic of the connection between the White Prophet and the Catalyst?
I don't know.
Just like an odd deja vu? Is
I'm
it just
of
a sense of
two-
foreboding that Fitz
Yeah.
has?
I'm of two minds. The first is that it is a type of magic, sort of the catalyst magic or whatever, like White Prophet catalyst magic, that also appeared when they did the connection on their trip to find Verity on that little
The
ledge or
skill
whatever.
pillar.
Yes, I feel like they are clearly intertwined, and I don't know. It's really hard because I don't understand if this book implies that catalysts and white prophets are sort of reborn, like they're multiple lives sort of things, because
I don't think so.
that was the vibe I got the first trilogy when the skill pillar scene happened, is that they had lived this before as different people and that they were doing it again. And I feel like that sort of pops up every once in a while of Fitz ultimately feeling like in this moment, this has happened before. We have done this dance before. And I don't know why that's in there, because I can't figure out if that's supposed to be, a little hint or a tidbit about something or what. I don't know. I don't understand it. I want to. And I don't think this and that other scene are the only two instances, but I don't know what it means. Like, I can't, nothing comes to mind. The only other thing I could say about it is perhaps, and this is a long stretch, this is not, I don't even necessarily believe it. It's kind of more of a tinfoil hat theory that I have thought of, that maybe it's more of this is Fitz having feelings for Beloved and pushing that aside as like it's some mystical thing happening, but it can't be it can't be feelings. You know what I mean?
I could ascribe to that theory for other moments, but not this. It just doesn't seem like that to me. But like you said, it's a long stretch there.
Yeah, just
that one.
Thinking of like that feeling you get whenever you're with somebody that you like a lot, and a moment, like a brief moment, feels like more because there's that undercurrent of feelings there. But like, if you don't want to admit that you like somebody that you think is of the same gender, and you feel like you're not gay, so how could you like somebody of the same gender, sort of like thing happening, like of course you're gonna brush that off as what a weird moment. I feel like we've done this before, but I don't know.
Again,
I'm not saying that's absolutely what I believe. I'm just saying I could see that could maybe be something, but I don't think that was what Hobb intended. So it's hard. I don't know. I don't know what it means. I wish I did.
Fitz changes the subject and asks more about the pale woman, asking if she has a name. And the fool replies like, no, not one that you would have heard at least. And yet you have heard of her, and then relates that she is the pale woman who Fitz has, after thinking a bit, has heard rumors of during the Red Ship raiding war, and is the White Prophet to Kebble Rawbread's catalyst.
I had to think really hard. We did actually get that as a little thing, right?
In the first one?
In the first book. There was like one short little...
There's a pale ship that's talked about, like the white ship that he sees a couple times. And then there was one little sentence of a rumor of the pale woman or something.
From Chade, I think, talking about how some pale woman's advising. It's like literally just like
it was probably like a throwaway thing of like all these ridiculous rumors of blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And so then we have Fitz being like, yeah, I guess I kind of remember that, which is exactly how I felt when I was trying to rack my brain to like, did this actually get talked about? Or is this sort of a like, oh, the rumors, as you know, that were not touched on, that we're just supposed to believe. But I'm pretty sure there was some rumors that we heard.
Kebble Rawbread is her catalyst who comes to enable others to be heroes? He shook his head. Not that one. Her catalyst comes to dismantle heroes, to enable men to be less than what they should be. For where I would build, she would destroy. Where I would unite, she would divide. He shook his head. She believes all must end before it can begin anew. And what do you believe? A slow smile spread over his face. I believe in you. You are my new beginning. So, I don't trust the fool in this assessment. Because He never met her. He never talked philosophy with Illustor, really. I mean, yes, she's there for like destruction. Like in general, she is the bad guy in this, right? Like we know that. However, I feel like his vision is like his vision for the future and what he wants, since it's so opposite of what apparently that she wants. It's like clouding him saying, kind of like the Starling thing. It's clouding him saying like, oh, she's destruction where I am creation, you know?
I mean, sure, but he does know the people that trained her, and he does know what they were saying to him. And I feel like it would be pretty easy to tell that they had trained her up in what they wanted, and clearly what they want is not what he wants.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
I mean, he doesn't know her, but he knows the training she went through. He knows what Clarist wants, what their outcome. Well,
does he?
I don't know. I mean, he's not wrong.
I know he's not wrong about it, but I think it's coming from a place of not necessarily being correct either.
Okay.
Or like knowing factually that it is correct. I just think it's a funny little thing. It's so matter of fact of like, she stands for destruction and war, or I want to unite people.
Yeah. And I mean,
okay.
Yeah, I'm sure if he talked to her, that would not be what she said. Although she is pretty like storybook character evil by the time we meet her. So
that's true.
Maybe she would say that. I don't know. But yeah, there is definitely this sort of vibe of like, I'm correct. And like, I know everything because I'm the true prophet.
It's
and
just
there can
funny
only
to
be
me.
one.
Yeah.
But also, I found it really interesting to think of this whole like the world needs to end before it can be.
Yeah, before it can start anew.
Yeah, which is a really interesting thought process to have. And I mean, maybe there are prophecies where the world does get better after they ruin it, you know? I don't know. Who's to say? There's no way of knowing because we don't really get to parse through all of the different sort of prophecies.
So the fool slowly then reaches up towards his earring, the freedom earring that Burek had given him.
Had given Fitz.
Yep. And Fitz had given to Beloved. He says, I've been wearing this since the last time I left you, but I think I should give it back to you now. Where I go, I cannot wear it. It is too unique. Folk might remember seeing an earring like this on you, or on Burek, or on your father. It might tickle memories I wish to leave undisturbed. And he struggles with the catch on the earring, and Fitz says, No, don't. Disguise it if you must, but wear it, please. Are you sure? He asked incredulously. Yes, I said, and I was. So he wants to keep it with the fool. I had entrusted it to the fool, bidding him give it to Molly after my death as a sign I had never forgotten her. In his wisdom, he had kept it. And Fitz is like, nah, he should keep it.
It's his.
Yep. And then there's a little bit of a page break. And it's the next morning. And when he had risen, the fool is already ready to go with his pack on the middle of the table.
Yeah, and Fitz is a grump about it. He is in a bad mood and he is like throwing things around. He's slamming the kitchen cabinets. He's that mother who's saying, I do everything in this household and nobody wants to help me. And then everybody's like, can I help? And no. Fitz is just having a time, and he
wakes up and asks, "You're leaving already?" Yeah. The fool's like, "Yeah." And Night Eyes is like, "We should go with him." This is where Night Eyes first like chimes in. He's like, "Hey,
yeah,
we should go." Yeah,
Night Eyes is agreeing with Fool's offer of leaving with him, and Fitz is hurt by both of them in this moment.
What of Hap? Like, there's stuff to do. I got stuff to do here. Come on. I have to stay here, he said to both of them. Neither one looked convinced. It made me feel sedate and staid to refuse them both, and I did not care for either sensation. I have responsibilities here, I said, almost angrily. I cannot simply go off and allow the boy to come back to an empty home. No, you cannot, the fool agreed quickly. Yet even his agreement stung, as if he said it only to mollify me. I found myself suddenly in a surly mood.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong, and it makes me mad that everybody's like, oh, just leave Hap behind. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, he needs to make sure Hap, like, even if he is going to leave Hap behind, he needs to let Hap know that. And everybody pretending like it can wait, it doesn't matter, makes me mad. But, I mean, ultimately, he does need to go to Buckkeep too. So I get it. But he is kind of mad. He's mad that everybody's going against him. Everybody's making him feel bad for staying. He doesn't want to lose his friend again. And so as soon as he gets done eating, he stands up and says, I'm going to get your horse ready.
No sense in getting your fine clothes dirty, I told the fool sullenly.
So he is pouting a little bit. And he goes out, and it does help him a little to sort of get Malta ready to go. It's that soothingness of taking care of a horse that's,
I saw the fool standing by the porch, one hand on Night Eyes' back. Discontent washed through me again, and childishly I blamed him for it. If he had not come to see me, I would have never recalled how much I missed him. I would have continued to pine for the past, but I would not have begun to long for a future. I felt soured and old as he came to embrace me. Knowing there was nothing admirable about my attitude did nothing to improve it. I stood stiffly in his farewell clasp, barely returning it. I thought he would tolerate it, but when his mouth was by my ear, he muttered mawkishly, "Farewell, beloved." Despite my irritation, I had to smile. I gave him a hug and released him. Go safely, fool, I said gruffly.
There is nothing worse than being in a bad mood, knowing it's not a good time to be in a bad mood, and not being able to stop being in a bad mood.
Well, and then, your best friend makes fun of you a bit, and then, you have to laugh.
Yeah, you're right.
Pulls him out of it, Slightly pulls him out of it. Fitz likes to be in his bad moods.
True.
So it's hard to fully get him out. So he swings up onto Malta, and from Fitz's point of view, the aristocratic young man on the horse bore no resemblance to the fool I had known as a lad. Only when his gaze met mine did I see my old friend there. Yeah, so he springs away on Malta, and he's looking a new man. He's an aristocratic young man who is going to join the court at Buckkeep. Lord Golden has emerged. When I finally went back into the cabin, I found he had cleaned all of the dishes and the pot and put them away. In the center of my table, where his pack had concealed it, a farseer buck was graven deep, his antlers lowered to charge. I ran my fingers over the carved figure, and my heart sank in me. "What do you want of me?" I asked of the stillness.
And then we get another page break. This is really interesting because I feel as though we don't get a ton of page breaks with Hobb's writing, especially not with the Fitz books.
Yes.
Yeah, we get page breaks with
the live ships,
because we're switching point of view. But even those page breaks don't have anything. It's just an extra large paragraph space. Here we have little leaf decor in between.
Oh, for me, it's just a page break.
Oh, well, at least in my print, this version, I have little leaf decor.
Oh, you circled them too with question marks.
The second one, because I was like, it was 2 page breaks. Here's a non-circled.
Nice. Yeah, you get little fancy little prints.
Yeah,
printing is in there.
Okay, so maybe it was just mine, but I just found that really interesting because I don't know. It feels like we don't really get them with Fitz all that often.
Mm-hmm. But it's another kind of flow break here as well, because some days pass and it's another bit of time is passing and I'm in my old routines and things are happening, and I don't know, a month and a half has passed. It's a weird kind of it would be very odd to have this passage just go from one part of farewell fool, and then all of a sudden days are passing without a break. So I think it works in this. Each day seemed possessed of a dull sameness, and the evenings stretched endless before me. There was work to fill the time, and I did it, but I also marked that work only seemed to beget more work. A meal cooked meant only dishes to clean, and a seed planted only meant weeding and watering in the days to follow. Satisfaction in my simple life seemed to elude me. I missed the fool and realized that all those years I had missed him as well. It was like an old injury wakened to new complaint. The wolf was no help in enduring it. A deep thoughtfulness had come upon him, and evenings often found us trapped in our individual ponderings. So yeah, it's kind of rough for Fitz after he has some company that he
Yeah.
enjoys for a while, and then it's like, oh man, I
Back
am
to the
alone.
solitude.
Yeah.
And it's worse because Night Eyes is sort of in this weird mood. It's
Yeah, yeah.
not the same as before, especially because of the changes in Night Eye. And Night Eye is, I I won't say moody, but it does seem
He's
like
thoughtful.
he's very withdrawn and really taking time to himself. And then one night he rests his head on Fitz's knee, to which makes Fitz say, "Are you all right?" And he says, "It would not be good for you to be alone. I'm glad the scentless one returned to us. I'm glad that you know where to find him." Then, with a groan, he lifted his chin from my knee and went to curl in the cool earth by the front porch. So, even when he is reaching out to Fitz and talking with Fitz, it's more just like, I'm glad I'm not going to leave you alone
Right,
forever.
I
When
know.
I'm done, you have somebody to find. It's fine.
Oh yeah. Real cheerful Night Eyes.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, though, one of these days, in the midst of his discontent, the boy returns. Hap comes back. Night Eyes, of course, sense it first and sends that thought towards Fitz. And Fitz is like, so soon? But as I framed the thought, I knew it was not soon at all. The months he had spent with Starling had devoured the spring. He'd shared high summer with me, but had been gone all the month of early harvest and part of full harvest. Only a moon and a half had passed, and yet it still seemed horribly long. I caught a glimpse of a figure at the far end of the lane. Both Night Eyes and I hastened to meet him. When he saw us coming, he broke into a weary trot to meet us halfway. When I caught him in my arms in a hug, I knew at once he had grown taller and lost weight, and when I let go and held him at arm's length to look at him, I saw both shame and defeat in his eyes. "Welcome home," I told him, but he only gave a rueful shrug. So Hap greets him, says, I've only come home with a tail between my legs, and he hugs Night Eyes and says, he's gone all to bone. He was sick for a while, but he's on the mend now, I told him. I tried to make my voice hearty and ignore the jolt of worry I felt. So, so Fitz has been like, oh yeah, Night Eyes is on the mend. He's fine. He's looking better. He's back to his normal. And it takes another person being like, hey, are you sure he's all right? To Fitz like, ooh, I was hoping that he would be fine.
I didn't read it that way at all. I thought the jolt of worry he's hiding is for how down Hap is feeling.
Oh, maybe.
The Hap is like, I'm here with my tail between my legs. I failed. And he's like, oh my gosh, the dog. And he's like, ooh, I'm really worried about my boy. Why
Okay.
is he so upset? But
Yeah.
no, everything's fine. He was sick, but he's better now. Well, let's go eat. You seem like you need food.
It could be that too, yeah.
So yeah, I definitely did not read it at all about his worry for Night Eyes. I thought it was him worried about his boy, who is clearly not in a good mood.
As they're walking back, Hap explains why he's not doing so well. And it's basically that, yeah, there was lots of work everywhere, except everyone would hire somebody else that they knew before me. I was always the last to be hired. And also, food's very expensive. And no one wanted me to sleep, in their barns or within their walls or talk to their daughters or anything. So I was kind of on my own, paying for expensive food and the last to be hired all the time.
And getting paid very poorly.
Yes.
I worked like a man, Tom, but they paid me like a mouse with crumbs and cut coins.
I've come home with only a handful more of coins than when I left. I was a fool to leave. I would have done as well to stay home and sell chickens and salt fish. The hard words rattled out of him. I said nothing, but let him get all of them said. By then we were at the door. We went inside and set food on the table. And as Hap is looking around, Fitz notices him looking around and knows that Hap thinks the world has gotten a lot smaller. Or at least the world is bigger and this cabin has gotten smaller since he's back to it.
Which is a weird thing for him to think Hap is thinking, considering Hap has been what it sounds like camping on the side of the road all summer. It's not like he was in a big inn
Yeah.
staying there and like had fancy stuff to do. He's back to his home. I don't know that I don't know. It just felt like a weird like the world is so big and the cabin's so small in comparison. Feels weird when you know he's just been doing hard labor all summer.
There's a couple things the reason why I think that this makes sense. And one of them is focused on Fitz and one of them is focused on Hap. So the one on Hap is that Fitz has been thinking about Hap's discontent this whole time and like worried about that. And he's been saying like, oh, I can see that Hap wouldn't be okay here. You know, they had that talk
Right.
beforehand of like, I need to get out of here. I need to be apprenticed. So I think Fitz is seeing a continuation of that and knowing that I need Hap well apprenticed, especially with him staying up nights when the fool was still there.
Right.
And then the other thing with Fitz is that Fitz understands this. His own restlessness right now is like, okay, this cabin is getting a lot smaller than I thought. So I think he's kind of putting that onto Hap a little bit too, of just like, there's things here that just aren't making any of us content anymore. And two, Fitz has traveled the world and come back and been like, oh, the world is wider than I thought.
Fair enough.
So I think it's a little bit of all that kind of being, being able to read his boy.
Okay. Sure.
And then Hap says, I don't know what I'm going to do. Hire out another year, I suppose. But by then, someone might think me too old to learn well. Already one man I met on the road told me that he had never met a master craftsman who hadn't begun his training before he was 12. So they're really hungry. They fall to eating, and Fitz is worried as well.
I wouldn't say they. I think it's just Hap eating here.
Hap is ravenous.
Yeah, he's feeding Night Eyes meat, and Night Eyes isn't hungry, but he's eating it because the boy offered, and it's like
sharing meat with Pack.
Yeah, sharing meat with Pack.
Then Hap abruptly leans forward and traces the charging buck. It says, this is beautiful. When did you learn to carve like this? I didn't. An old friend came by and spent part of his visit decorating the cabin. I smiled to myself. When you have a moment, take a look at the rain barrel. An old friend? I didn't think you had any, save Starling. He did not mean the observation to sting, but it did. His fingers traced again the emblem. Once, Fitzchivalry Farseer had worn that charging buck as an embroidered crest. Oh, I've a few. I just don't hear from them often. Ah, what about new friends? Did Jinna stop in on her way to Buckkeep? She did. She left us a charm to make our garden grow better as thanks for a night's shelter. He gave me a sideways glance. She stayed the night then. She's nice, isn't she? Yes, she is. He waited for me to say more, but I refused. He ducks his head, trying to smother a grin, and Fitz reaches across and affectionately cuffs him.
Yes. Well, I mean, the only other girl who's ever spent the night was Starling, so
right.
Obviously something happened with Jenna, and he's not saying. I don't know. It's funny. This is like such a cute little moment of like, oh, you have friends? Like, what about new friends? And I think it's funny, but also fair because Hap has lived with Fitz for 10 years or like close
8 years,
to,
something like that. Yeah,
something around there. And the only person who's ever visited them is Starling. So it's fair of him to be like, wait, you have friends that aren't Starling? Like, who?
But eventually, that happy moment kind of subsides because Hap can't get his mind off of what he's going to do. I thought it would be easy, and it wasn't. And I was willing to work hard for a fair wage, and I was civil and put in a fair day, and still they all treated me poorly. What am I going to do? I can't live here at the edge of nowhere for all my life. I can't. No, you can't. And in that moment, I perceived two things. First, that my isolated lifestyle had ill-prepared the boy to make his own way, and second, that this was what Chade must have felt when I had declared that I would not be an assassin anymore. It is strange to think that when you gave a boy what you thought was the best of yourself, you actually crippled him. His frantic glance left me feeling small and shamed. I should have done better by him. I would do better by him. I heard myself speak the words before I even knew I had thought them. I do have old friends at Buckkeep. I can borrow the money for your apprenticeship fee. My heart lurched at the thought of what form the interest on such a loan might take, but I steeled myself. I would go to Chade first, and if he asked of me in return was too dear, I would seek out the fool. It would not be easy to humbly ask to borrow money, but you do that for me. For me? But I'm not even really your son. Hep looked incredulous. I would do that, because you're as close to a son as I'm ever likely to get.
Two things. First, how sad that Hap's first thought was, why would you do that for me? I'm not even your kid, when Fitz has been raising him this whole time. Secondly, why is Fitz's response, well, you're as close to a son as I'm gonna get? No, he is your son. Yeah, why?
I think they have a little bit less affectionate relationship than we kind of all imagine. As like, they're not father and son. It's like, I'm a caretaker and you're an orphan kind of thing. I feel like it's more of like they really do like each other and care for each other and are close, but they're also in just kind of a mutually beneficial situation rather than a parent and a kid.
I mean,
That's what I get from this exchange, at least.
I guess, but I don't like that.
Right.
I feel like, I mean, I get that you're not going to call yourself the father of somebody who you have adopted, right? Like, that's up to them to like sort of like establish, like, I think of you as my father, because that's like, you know, you're just their caretaker until given permission to be more. But in this moment, why can't he just say, well, I think of you as a son? Why make it into a weird, well, you're as close to a son as I'm going to get? First of all, you have another son that you are completely ignoring 24/7. Second of all, like, you're 30 something. You have life left ahead of you. You could have another kid. Like, it bothers me so much. I just, I want to strangle him in this moment. Like, Fitz, I'm going to shake him furiously. Like, Fitz, treat that kid better.
Hap takes it as good as he could as well. I mean, it's...
Well, he first says, you know, I'll help you pay the debt, I swear. And Fitz does, to his credit, cut him off and say, no, this is not your debt. I'm taking on this debt freely because that's what I want to do for you.
I'll just expect you to pay close attention and learn.
Just be a good apprentice, which, spoiler alert, Hap does not do. So whatever, but...
I will, Tom, I will. And I swear in your old age you shall lack for nothing. He spoke the words with the devout ardency of guileless youth. I took them as he intended them and ignored the glowing amusement in Night Eyes' gaze. See how edifying it is when someone sees you as tottering toward death? I never said you were at your grave's edge. No, you just treat me as if I were brittle as old chicken bones. Aren't you? No, my strength returns. Wait for the falling of the leaves in cooler weather. I'll be able to walk you until you drop, just as I always have. But what if I have to journey before then? And what if you jump for a buck's throat and miss? There's no point to worrying about it until it happens. Night Eyes is like, yeah, quit worrying over me, mother hen.
Yeah,
I'm fine. I'm not walking my way towards an early grave.
Yeah, see how bad it feels when somebody treats you as older than you are? Remember that next time you're doing that to me.
Except Night Eyes is old.
Well,
he's an old boy.
But he's okay.
Yeah, he's still good. He still fights with Fitz later on.
Yeah.
So. Are you thinking what I am? Hap anxiously broke the seeming silence of the room. I met his worried gaze. Perhaps. What were you thinking? Which is like a great way of Fitz saying like, no, I have no idea what you're thinking.
No, Hap, I don't know. Just say what you want to say.
That the sooner you speak to your friends at Buckkeep, the sooner we will know what to expect for the winter. Another winter here would not suit you, would it? No. It isn't that I don't like it here with you and Night Eyes. It's just that... Have you ever felt that as if you could actually feel time flowing away from you? As if life were passing you by and you were caught in a backwater with the dead fish and old sticks? You can be the dead fish. I'll be the old stick. I ignored Night Eyes.
That is such a funny comment from Night Eyes.
Yes.
I love when Night Eyes is sassy.
Yeah, people asked what the, I think for our 5th year episode was, what's your favorite Night Eyes moment and things like that. It's like when Night Eyes is like this to me. And when later on in this chapter, he makes a joke about the chickens. And that's, I think, always the attitude I love from Night Eyes. Fitz agrees, like, yeah, I remember feeling that way a time or two. I'll set out as soon as possible. And Hap's like, oh, I could be ready by tomorrow morning. A good night's sleep and we can go. And Fitz is like, no, you're going to stay here.
Yeah, and
I will
he's
go.
trying to think of a kind way to explain why he has to go alone without hurting the boy's feelings. And also, clearly, he wants to leave. So he doesn't want him to feel like he's left behind. So instead, he says, we have the chickens and stuff to take care of here. So I need you to stay and take care of that while I settle everything ahead of time. Sort of trying to make it like...
He also tips ahead towards Night Eyes. Like, there are things you need to take care of.
Yeah, like...
And Night Eyes rolls onto his side and then onto his back. Here's the dead wolf. Might as well bury him. All he's fit for is to lie about in a dusty yard and watch chickens he's not permitted to kill. He paddled his paws vaguely at the air. Idiot. The chickens are why I'm asking the boy to stay, not you. Oh? So, if you woke up tomorrow and they were all dead, there would be no reason we could not set out together. You had better not, I warned him. He opened his mouth and let his tongue hang to one side. The boy smiled down at him fondly. I always think he looks as if he's laughing when he does that.
Yeah, it's cute. I love Night Eyes. He's so funny. But it is in this moment where Fitz is kind of like, nobody's fit to come with me in this incident. Night Eyes is too sickly. Hap needs to not know the people that I know at Buckkeep. He can't put together, or else he'll be in danger. So everybody just needs to stay here.
Yeah, I'm just Tom Badgerlock. I can't be part of the royal family.
Yes, so there's that. And he is trying to figure it out, which is kind of weird to me because ultimately isn't the place that Hap wants to be apprenticed at in Buckkeep. So he'd have to go to Buckkeep, get the loan, come back, get Hap, go back to Buckkeep again. Why not just have Hap come with you and you can have him stay at the inn while you go negotiate with Chade or whatever? He doesn't have to come with to the meetings.
Right.
It just, I don't know, it's odd to me that in Fitz's mind, it would be better if Hap just stays behind.
Well, it's the chickens. They're super important.
Obviously, the chickens need to be tended to. And then Fitz talks about how it feels like he's dragging his feet about it too, because he is not ready the next day.
I don't know if he's dragging his feet. I think he's doing it properly, but over worried for leaving his boy alone at the house,
Sure. And he does say, he doesn't leave the next day, but he is up way earlier than the boy and he's getting things ready.
He's doing all his chores.
He is putting things together that he needs to bring with him, and he's making sure everything is ready for the boy to take care of so he has less to do.
Airing out his musty, good linen shirt because the only time he wore it was when Starling brought it for him.
A few years ago. Starling brought one as a gift, and now he's needs it, and it's yellowed with age, and he knows that Chade is going to be disappointed and the fool is going to laugh at him, but it's all he has, so it's what he's going to have to work with.
And then he also gets Verity's sword down, cleans it up, wraps the hilt so it's not, super fancy, and then does some exercises with that before belting it on because he's going to have to travel.
Right, and he does mention that the sword itself is sort of discolored with
tarnished with disuse. Yeah.
Tarnished with disuse. And so he cleans it up a little, but you can't really, once something's tarnished, it's harder to make it, not look tarnished, but it kind of works for him because he's hoping that it looks like it's not as good of a weapon and people won't wonder where he got it or try to mug him for it. And there is a jeweled hilt that he is covering, like you said. So he's sort of trying to lean in, like this is the weapon he has, but he doesn't want people to know it's a good one.
Mm-hmm. So he resumes his stance, makes a few cuts at the air, and Night Eyes cuts in, better take an axe. And Fitz is like, I don't have one.
And then Night Eyes brings up, well, you chop wood with one, so...
And Fitz is like, I can't carry a wood axe around with me on the road. That would look insane. So he sheaths the sword and turns to look at Night Eyes. Night Eyes is sitting in the doorway of the workshop, his tail neatly curled about his feet. Amusement glinted in his dark eyes. He turned his head to stare innocently into the distance. I think one of the chickens died in the night. Sad. Poor old thing. Death comes for all of us eventually. He was lying, but he had the satisfaction of seeing me sheath the sword and hurry to see if it were so.
And none of the chickens are dead.
Yeah.
How odd. I would have sworn the fat white hen looked poorly yesterday. I'll just lie out here in the shade and keep an eye on her.
And Fitz is just like ignoring him, just
Yeah,
like,
he's like,
okay.
whatever. Night Eyes, like, ugh.
He also has to bore a new hole in the leather belt. He's gotten a little thicker around the middle.
Happens to us all.
Mhm.
But
And
it's,
then Hap finally wakes up.
yeah. And there's also, he talks about when he's going through the forms of the sword forms earlier, that he remembers everything that Hodd taught him, but his body isn't able to keep up with that training anymore.
Right, yeah.
It's different muscles. It's not something that he's been keeping up with. It's not muscle memory. It's just sort of harder than he remembers it being. And it's annoying that, like, in his mind, he could still do it, but physically, it's not exactly the same. But yes, then Hap wakes up.
It's like, I've never seen that before, looking at the sword. I've had it for a long time. I've never seen you wear it when we went to the market. All you ever carried before was your sheath knife. A trip to Buckkeep is a bit different from a trip to the market. His question made me look at my own motives for taking the blade. When last I had seen Buckkeep, a number of people there wished me dead. If I encountered any of them and they recognized me, I wanted to be ready. A city like that has a lot more rogues and scoundrels than a simple country market. So he draws the sword and hears Hap's indrawn breath. Even with the handle wrapped in plain leather, there was no mistaking it for a cheap blade. This was a weapon created by a master. Can I try it? So Fitz nods permission, has Hap take it, and he holds it in an awkward imitation of a sword stance and takes a couple swipes and tires himself out. And Fitz is like, I had never taught Hap how to fight. Was that a mistake? Like,
right. There's more of this sort of sadness of how ill-prepared Hap is. That there's like another thing that he didn't help Hap prepare for. And this time it is about sort of that learning how to wield a weapon. And he thinks, he didn't think to do it because he hoped that the boy would never need violence. But watching Hap poorly imitate a swordsman now, he realizes that just because he was hoping that doesn't mean it will never happen.
Yeah.
And since he never gave the boy any lessons, he's now worse off because he has no way of protecting himself.
not teaching them to him was no protection against someone challenging him, rather like refusing to teach dutiful about the skill. I pushed that thought aside and said nothing as Hap swung the blade in the air. I'll be leaving for Buckkeep tomorrow morning at dawn. I still need to clean this blade, grease my boots, pack some clothing and food, and cut your hair, Hap interjected quietly. Usually when Starling came to visit me, she cut my hair for me. For a moment I stared at how long it had grown. Then, as I had not in years, I pulled it to the back of my head and fastened it into a warrior's tail. Hap looked at me with brows raised, but said nothing about my martial aspect. So he has his warrior's tail in now.
Which is kind of a crazy thing to choose to do when you're trying not to be recognized as Fitz chivalry farseer who always wore his hair in that sort of way. You'd think he would go for the short hair, but hey, what do I know? I'm not the disguise master. That's Chade.
Long before dusk, I was ready to travel. I turned my attention to my small holding and busied himself and Hap making sure everything was good to go and probably over-preparing Hap for when Fitz was going to be gone.
Right. And he catches himself sort of reminding Hap things that Hap has known for years and has been doing on his own for years. And Hap has to sort of be like, hey, I got it. I will be fine. You can leave. Things will be fine. I promise it'll still be standing when you come back.
Yeah, he's like, I just wish I was going with you. And Tom's like, Fitz is like, well, if all goes well, we'll be making a trip to Buckkeep together. So don't worry about that.
Yeah, you will eventually go. And I think this comes up in a little bit, but I think this is sort of Hap's fears of being abandoned again coming up. It's not necessarily that bad right now, but I think that is sort of that feeling he's getting of, I wish I was going with you, repeated over and over again, of just because he doesn't want to be left behind, probably for a lot of reasons. But in that, I feel like I definitely saw his little heartbreak of like, I don't want to be left behind. and struggling with that. But at least Fitz is sort of reassuring in that and just saying, I'm going to be back. We're going to go together. It's fine. Everything's fine. And as he's reassuring him, that's when Night Eyes mentions that there are horses coming.
And he stares down the road, hoping it was the fool, but it's not. It's a stranger. He rode a rangy roan horse and led another. Dust mottled the sweat streaks on his horse's withers. A sense of foreboding rises in Fitz as he watches them approach, and the wolf shares his trepidation. His hackles bristled down his spine, and the deep growl that rose from him brought Hap to the door as well. What is it? I'm not sure, but it's no random wanderer or peddler. So at the sight, the stranger reins in his horse, and he just sits there, coming forward more slowly, lifting a hand in greeting. Are you lost, stranger? I greeted the man. He made no reply, but rode closer to us. The rider seemed unaware of the rising warning from the wolf's growl. Wait, I bade Night Eyes. So Fitz stands his ground and eventually raises his hand, and that's an understood symbol, a universal symbol. So the stranger stops.
Right. He also says, that's close enough. What do you seek here?
Yeah, he doesn't pause at those words, but
he
pauses at the gesture.
Yeah.
He made a gesture first at his ears and then his mouth as he rode closer. So Fitz reverts to sign because obviously this man is mute and deaf.
Yes. Which should immediately tell Fitz that this is somebody Chade is working with.
Sense of foreboding. He reaches into a messenger's pouch and pulls out a scroll and offers it to Fitz. So Fitz grabs the scroll, sees the red wax seal of his own charging buck that was imprinted on it. A different sort of trepidation swept through me. I stared at the missive in my hand, then with a gesture gave the deaf mute permission to dismount. I took a breath and spoke to Hap with a steady voice. Take him inside and provide him food and drink. The same for his horses, please. And to Night Eyes, keep an eye on him, my brother, while I see what this scroll says. So Hap emerges a little bit later, leading the horses off and getting them ready. And Fitz looks at the scroll.
Yes. And the scroll simply says, Dear cousin, family matters at home require your attention. Do not delay your return. You know I would not summon you thus unless the need was urgent. The signature that followed this brief missive was indecipherable. It was not Chade's name. The real message had been in the seal itself. He never would have used it unless the need was urgent. I re-rolled the scroll and looked up towards the sinking sun. So it's Chade.
Yep. Well, yeah, he recognizes the writing for sure.
Yeah. And he knows that this is secret code, but something has happened and he needs to go.
And it's even not that secret. Like,
yeah.
So Fitz is like, oh, this must be bad.
Yeah. Things have to be bad if this is this is the way he's coming to get me. Like something has happened.
He enters the house and the messenger stands up immediately. He's still chewing, wiping his hand across his mouth. And he's like, okay, we're going to go.
And Hap comes back in saying, I've unsaddled the horses and given them water. And Fitz is like, go saddle them up again. I got to go.
Where are you going? He asked in a small voice. Buckkeep, lad, and faster than I expected. There was no way to estimate when I might be back, or even if I would come back. A missive like this from Chade would definitely mean danger of some kind. I was amazed at how easily I decided. I want you and the wolf to follow at first light. Use the pony and cart, so if he gets weary, he can ride. Hap stared at me as if I had gone mad. What about the chickens? And the chores I was to do while you were gone? The chickens will have to fend for themselves. No, they wouldn't last a week before a weasel had them. Take them to Baylor. He'll feed and watch for them for the sake of their eggs. Take a day or so and close the house up tight. We may both be gone a while. But, the fear in his voice made me turn back to him. He stared at me as if I were suddenly a stranger. Where should I go when I get to Buckkeep Town? Will you meet me there? I heard an echo of the abandoned boy in his voice. So this is kind of what you were talking about as well with the previous mention of Fitz going and going to be coming back. This is where it's coming out in full force, where it's like, I I'm being left alone. There's actually no more plan. What's
Yeah.
going on? I don't know where to go.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, a lot of things have just changed, but it's really
Yeah.
interesting to me that he's kind of getting what he wants. He gets to go to Buckkeep. He gets to go right now. He doesn't have to wait for Fitz to come back. But it's so uncertain because he doesn't know where he's going. What if Fitz doesn't come for him? What if he gets to Buckkeep and he doesn't know anybody, and then what? And so it's really scary. And so I can see how he's very worried in this moment of, what do I do? And Fitz is sort of struggling because it's been a long time since he's been to Buckkeep.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know the names of any place that might still be standing.
He's trying to rack his brain, and all of a sudden Hap chimes in. Jenna said I could stay at her house, next time I came through.
And her place has the hedge witch symbol, which is just a palm with lines on it. And Fitz is like, perfect, we can meet there.
And then Hap, of course, is like, okay, I have a destination. I have a place to go. I know what I'm doing.
And relief is showing on his face. Like, he clearly feels better knowing that.
And Fitz himself does not have that security.
Right.
Despite all my uneasiness, a strange elation filled me. Chade's old spell fell over me again. Secrets and adventures. I felt the wolf nudge against me. A time of change. Then, gruffly, I could try to keep pace with the horses, but Buckkeep is not so far. I do not know what this means, my brother, and until I do, I would just as soon that you stayed by Hap's side. Is that supposed to salve my pride? No, it's supposed to ease my fears. I will bring him safely to Buckkeep town then, but after that, I am at your side. Of course. Always. And he heads off with the messenger.
Yeah, back to Buckkeep.
Yeah, the funny thing about Night Eyes is that he is making all those jokes like, oh, I could walk you to the ground still, But when it comes down to it, he knows, like, I could try to keep up with the horses if you want me to.
Yeah, like, I could try.
Yeah.
But, I think I might be able to, but no. Night Eyes ultimately still needs a little bit of rest. And so it's nice that there's a reason for him to get to stay behind. And he does mention, like, is this supposed to help my hurt pride? And I think Fitz is being honest here when he's like, no, I'm worried. And I don't want Hap to go alone. I don't want this to be, like, you do have a job here. Like, I would prefer you to stay with Hap. And I think they both understand that. And I think that does help salve the pride, even though Night Eyes makes it seem like it wouldn't. He is sort of mollified by, yes, I'll take care of the boy. But then it's back to you and me.
And it's almost like Fitz had a premonition that something would happen that night. He had his pack all packed up. He had the sword pretty much all fixed up and wrapped. Everything was ready to go by dusk, and he was just going to leave in the morning. But he was ready.
He was ready. I don't know.
I'm very curious if the Fool, and I think this is going to be my headcanon for it, the Fool had like a little vision of Fitz is going to follow me, and it's going to be by the sign of the charging buck, like his own sigil. And so he carved it into his table, hoping like, oh, Fitz will come after me seeing this, or like he'll come follow.
That's what, But
it was actually the scroll that he got.
That could be.
So that's my headcanon.
I like that.
It was just like a little mini thing that he saw.
He's like, maybe this will be the thing.
Yeah. Well, he knew it was going to be the charging buck sigil, just
didn't know
tried to make it happen.
Yeah. I don't know. Interesting either way. Yeah. I guess we don't know. I don't know, I should say, for sure, if Lord Golden is even in town yet. Like, does Chade know Fool is back at this point in time when the messenger has been sent? Potentially not.
I would think yes, because days passed, and it's...
How many days to Buckkeep?
It's not that far. It's like, I think a day's ride, maybe a night's ride, because it took them... I think it took them a day from Neat Bay when Chade and to go to Forge, and he's kind of near Forge.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like terribly far.
Maybe like 2 days. Well, because Fitz, or sorry, not Fitz, Hap and Starling stay away for a full month. And I know that that's not all traveling. It's because there's stuff going on. But that just makes it seem like... Maybe
it's 2 days ride then.
Yeah,
but still, it's not that far.
It seems like it would have to be far enough to be something that you're putting on. Like, why wouldn't you just go sometimes for the market even if it
Right.
was close enough? So that's why I'm like, it has to be a little bit of a distance. But yeah. So I guess you're right. Fool probably has been back.
Yeah, I think he's been back and probably established now, because when Fitz gets there, he links up with Lord Golden as the, and
Servant.
Lord Golden is already kind of established and known throughout the nobles.
Yes.
Because then he can establish like his excuse to go visit the Brisinga's estate.
Well, yeah, because ultimately, as rereaders, we know that what has happened is that the prince has gone missing.
Yep.
Fitz has been called back to find Dutiful. And as rereaders, we also know that Dutiful is with a bunch of old-blooded people, the piebalds specifically, with his cat.
Yeah, first off, it's just, some nice old blood people, and eventually they meet the piebalds and
it's not
with them.
Great. But I think he would have potentially ran away in last chapter when Fitz sort of connected through the wit with Dutiful and had that scene where Dutiful was sort of wanting to run away and leave it all behind, and the cat was trying to convince him to. So potentially that's how long he's been gone. But
maybe. But
if that's
that
the case, why would Chade wait that long?
Yeah, that'd be a really long time.
Yeah. Also, why does Chade need Fitz to solve this problem is my question. Like, there's nobody else that can go after the prince. Is this just a really good excuse to get him back? Because it's
Wit.
Yeah. But does Chade know that Wit is involved?
No, but I thought they suspected. I don't know. We'll get those reasonings later on.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, this is the chapter where things start to happen. No more sedate cabin life. No more homestead life.
Sad a little bit.
Yeah.
But also I'm glad because I'm ready for some action.
All right, thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you have thoughts on the chapter, please let us know. We're at isfitshappy@gmail.com, or you can message or comment on any of our social media posts at isfitshappy, Instagram, YouTube, Threads, Blue Sky, Reddit, any other ones? I think that's it. Thank you very much. Oh, and Facebook.
Yeah.
The other one. So thank you very much for tuning in.
All right. Now we get to do our favorite part of the podcast, which is talking about whatever you guys are talking to us about.
Yeah, but before we get into that, I do want to give a quick shout out and thanks to Stubbs for tipping us and donating to us, but also Anna and Vanis. As always, you have the recurring there, and we really appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for everybody who helps us out. It means a lot. So first, we're going to talk about a comment from Facebook, and this is from episode 257, which is Chapter 9, Fool's Errand, the most recent episode. And this is a comment from Cookie Baker, and it's a theory on Fitz's lack of talking about Molly. I have a theory that Fitz uses these writings to try to figure out what went wrong in his life and why he feels so lonely and unhappy. In the last trilogy, we can see glimpses of Fitz and his broken body and the boy by his side trying to figure out how he lost everything he cared about. Buckkeep, Molly, Verity. He broods on those much more than he does on his relationship with the Fool, because out of everyone he lost, he still feels they left on a good note. So Fitz never feels he lost the Fool. The current trilogy is probably written after their fight, when Fitz is trying to figure out their relationship and why it worked in the past, when they respected each other's boundaries. So this is why Molly is barely mentioned, because at the end of the trilogy, he has her back, so he doesn't have to reevaluate every interaction they had.
And Megan also commented, agreeing with the theory, and said that it sounded very likely.
Yeah, like he's Molly's in the next room telling him that, reassuring him that they're all good.
Yeah.
So he doesn't need to
dwell on their interactions or anything.
Right. Which would also make sense that there is more of an emphasis on Burek.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, spoiler alert, Burek dies at the end of this trilogy. And so he never really gets to have that closure with Burek.
Yeah.
And things with him and Nettle are sort of a little bit shaky. They're better for sure by the end of this trilogy, but I think there is still a little bit of that guilt of not being there for her, which I think definitely comes more into play later. But especially we saw with last episode where he talks about how he almost went back to them. And
Yeah.
it was because Nettle was coming that he had to turn away
Mm-hmm.
because he couldn't see her and then ignore, which is sad and cute at the same time. So I do like this theory a lot. I like
Yeah,
the
me too.
idea that
Because we
Yeah.
haven't really talked about when he would be writing these memories. Because we talked about it in the first trilogy, because it's quite
Yeah.
clear the narrative device that Robin Hobb is using is that he was writing them about now-ish.
Yeah.
But these specific memories, we hadn't talked about when he was writing them, but it makes sense that it would be in the future after this trilogy.
Yes.
You know?
When he's now living with Molly.
Mhm.
Before B, probably.
Yes.
I also do think a little bit that I haven't thought about it because I did see a fan theory somewhere that all of the books were written by B.
Yeah, I saw
And
that too.
That these are just what Fitz said when he was carving his stone dragon later. Like, this is the stories that he told. And that could be true. I don't know how I feel about it because we know that Fitz does write down his history. And it is from his point of view when it's the Fitz trilogies. Like, it's always about how past tense I had felt this way.
Right.
So it would make sense to me that it's a journal or a diary or some sort. And I don't know. I really like it. So I think that's a fun thing to point out. Thank you, Cookie Baker and Megan. We also got a few emails. The first one that we'll talk about is from Harry, who wrote in to talk about
The Cursed Shore.
the Cursed Shore.
First off, they have a couple thoughts on the stories that Fitz has been telling to the Fool of Fitz's travels. So one is a quick aside about the old blood, and we had that conversation before as well, how Fitz is hiding who he is, even though it's
Yes.
quite obvious he's Fitz. He is Tom, and that's it.
Yeah.
Harry chimes in to say it's probably also just give them a little bit of plausible deniability, a little bit of hint of doubt, just to add that extra layer of security.
Right.
So it kind of joins in with the other commenters that we've got about this.
Right, about like sort of giving them that safety of being able to say, no, I didn't know he was Fitz,
Yeah.
if they need it. But yeah, Harry also talks about how I was saying that the Cursed Shore could cause madness because there are some other dragons buried there. That was my theory.
Mm-hmm.
And Harry disagrees. They said, I don't think this can be the case, as Tintaglia would definitely have sensed them. To me, it's probably more to do with the repeated flooding of the river. I feel like the water running white is to do with the skill in some way, and this means there are a lot of memories imbued in the whole area, which would cause the general madness, and why Fitz says it reminds him of the skill road. So
That's also interesting. I agree with that one more so than the others, but not because of the water. Because I feel like we've talked about this and how the Rainwild River can't be skill. Like the causticness of it can't be skill because like Tarman and all of the other live ships would absorb that, or the dragons would absorb that and sense that as they're walking up. It must be something different. It must be like just the chemicals from like the eruption. But there were tons of hatching grounds and cocooning grounds, and that pulverized skill stone and silt and black sand must be spread all over now as well. So I still kind of like this theory, Harry, that skill is imbued and these memories are imbued into the land somehow.
yeah, it would also then, if we're talking about like the hatching grounds potentially having some effect with there's like some skill in that dirt, it would make more sense then, especially that Fitz's memories are really hinging a lot on dragons in his memories, but it's also his own sorrow and stuff. So it makes sense if it was sort of the leftover dragon memories that are that's in the silt coming to haunt at him, and he's interpreting it as sort of his time with dragons.
Yeah. I don't know. I still I don't know, personally, I still really like it's a magic place. It doesn't have to have an origin kind of thing
Yeah.
because I like the mystery and fantasy, but I do like Harry's theory that some sort of skill is imbuing it. I just don't quite agree with the Rainwild River.
Yeah. So thank you, Harry. We also got an email from Keith, and Keith wrote in to talk to us a little bit about episode 252.
First off, talking about the interaction with Fitz in the market and Baylor, saying that we might have misinterpreted him a little bit, and there's some reasons why Keith thinks so in here.
Yeah, and just as a backup, yeah, I guess that explained it. I was going to say episode 252 is when they're at the market, but
yeah,
you cover that. But yeah, so basically Keith talks about how they think that Fitz is sort of squaring up to Baylor, and that's what makes the uncomfortable atmosphere. And it's not Fitz being unable to read Baylor or the situation. It's that Fitz doesn't understand that he is making people scared based off of his reaction.
Yeah, it's a subconscious reaction to a tense or uncomfortable situation. Again, like Fitz talks about in his monologue that, you know, in the past he went through a traumatic event and that makes men react one of two ways. Either they shy away or they have to be aggressive right away.
Right.
And I think we were interpreting that as like he was preparing to do something, but not thinking that it was a physical reaction that other
Right.
people could notice.
Well, yeah. And I do want to point out in the book, Fitz says that he is relaxing and leaning back for most of the conversation.
Yeah.
And then he stands up and towers over Baylor at a certain point.
Right.
Like, so he actively is aware that he is making that change to be aggressive and show himself as an aggressive man. And that does get described in the thing. But Keith, I believe, is saying that Fitz probably looked aggressive before that, and that is where the uncomfortableness around him is coming from. And that Keith has a friend that was a Muay Thai boxer 10 years ago,
20 years.
or 20 years ago, isn't anymore. But whenever they feel uncomfortable, they also square up and without noticing it because it's just a natural reaction. And so it makes sense that Fitz would also sort of take an aggressive stance without even recognizing he's doing that because of what he's gone through. And because he is a trained fighter, he is trained to protect himself if needed.
Yeah. And Keith expands upon that with explaining Fitz's blind spot about himself. So Keith also brings up in the first trilogy when we have Chade and Fitz on the ride to Forge and they encounter the Forged Ones for the first time. Chade kind of remarks like, hey, you got, great sense about everything except when it comes to yourself, something along those lines.
Right.
And that really comes into play during this trilogy as well, especially in that scene where he can't even recognize himself being that aggressive or in that violent stance. And Baylor can't either because he's just a bully.
Yeah, Baylor thinks he's getting away with something here, and so he's blind to that, which, yeah.
But Keith's second part of that is Hap and Jinna in particular are keyed into it. One, because Hap knows him and is around Fitz all the time. And two, Jinna needs to be aware of people and is very perceptive to people because of hedge magic and because of what she does.
Right. And also, I mean, Jinna probably has the most experience with a wide range of people and can easily tell when danger is near just based off the nature of what she does for a living.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that she would be able to tell things were getting aggressive or heated. I like it. I like the idea that there is that blind spot from Fitz, the unreliable narrator, but I do feel like I almost feel like it could be a both are true sort of thing. And maybe it's just because I like the original idea and don't want to change my mind. No offense to Keith. I don't know. Cause it feels like since he does say that he does he is leaning back.
He describes his body language purposefully.
Yeah. That makes me feel like he's not aggressive at first. I definitely agree that he does get extra aggressive later, and he does note that, and maybe it's scarier than he realizes, especially because he's like a big buff man and probably still thinks of himself as the little scrawny teen that he used to be. But I feel as though I don't know, maybe it's just because he's leaning back with his arms crossed. I feel as though that cannot be scary enough to stop the crowd to look. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So I think, yes, absolutely part of what draws more people in is how scary Fitz is later. But I think to begin with, he is missing the cue of like, something is wrong here. This is weird. This guy's being super aggressive for no reason because he's like,
And see, I know, yeah, you take that stance of like Fitz wasn't quite understanding Baylor the first couple times. I take it as he was deliberately being obtuse to deflect Baylor and say like, no, we don't want to do this. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
So, yeah. But it's really interesting to have that point of view as well, that like it potentially is just Fitz being an unreliable narrator.
And just habitually falling into some defensive or aggressive stance.
Yes. Keith also had a really interesting theory about hedge magic in general, speaking of Jenna. And I thought it was really cool to think about. Basically, Keith says, it made them think of Chimera when she learned how to use the skill to fix the skill well, as well as fix some of the implements used in the Elderling city, Kelsingra. Also, the epigrams that discuss how to set up skill pillars and how to also create the skill road. It makes me think of hedge magic in a sense of you assigning attributes to certain objects, including how Jenna mentioned how certain colors can affect the attributes of her charms. So I wonder if the circle is even closer than we think, because there are elements of hedge magic in the use of liquid skill.
Yeah, so just like that, assigning value and imbuing them with this is what they do kind of thing, or just that like attitude of this is what you're going to do.
Yes. Yeah. The sort of like with the road, telling a brick you are a straight, sturdy road that nothing can break, or telling a group of sticks you are a scary deterrent for predators.
Right.
You can see the similarities there. It does lend itself to the magic system being a circle and this hedge magic being closer on the side of skill than not.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting though, because I mean, it's obvious that they are different magics at the same time though. Not quite like dragons versus wit and skill, where that's kind of like interlinked. But hedge magic that we see doesn't have any of that like coaxing or convincing. It's more just their innate sense of these are what these things do. I don't know. It's really interesting.
I mean, the only time we really see hedge magic in action so far, I guess, maybe later we also get some, is Jenna sort of attuning something that's already made. So she's not making it into something that makes the garden grow. We don't know how she does that.
True.
We just know that she's like holding Fitz's hand and making the gardens attuned to her. So like that a little bit's like
undoing them and adding beads and taking them away and painting things. So
I don't know.
Yeah, that's cool.
I like the theory. Thought. I like it a lot. So thank you, Keith. That was good to hear from you.
We also had an email from Niklas, and they are from Germany and wanted to chime in. First off, before we get to the episode stuff, they wanted to talk about their reading order, because we've asked about that from all of the people listening before, if you had interesting ways to come to this series. So Niklas is from Germany, and their history with the series is that the publisher in Germany that they got their books from published the first two Fitz trilogies. So 1 through 3 and 6 through 9.
Yes, and this is from 2017 onward.
Yep, and the other books were only in ebook format.
Yes, but as a first-time reader,
they didn't know that.
They didn't know that there were any other books, so they were super confused when they got to Tawny Man, and there's mentions of Bingtown and Amber and all that, because like, what is this talking about? And they felt like Fitz and being confused of what's going on.
Yeah, equally overwhelmed and confused what was even going on in this strange part of the world. So that is an interesting way to look at it. You kind of relate to the main character a bit more.
True. But now Niklas has definitely read all of the books and let us know that Tom Badgerlock is Tom
Dachenbless?
Dachenbless? I never know. I know that's like the same first few letters as like a dachshund or dachshund. I never know which is the correct way to pronounce it because in America we pronounce it both ways.
Yes. Yeah.
Dachshund dogs or dachshund dogs are like both accepted. So maybe it's Dachshund Bless or it's Dachshund Blessed. I'm so sorry. Either way. But thank you for sharing. It's really cool to see.
Yeah.
Um,
So thank you very much for the kind words. And Nicholas also had some thoughts about episode 257.
Yes.
And the interaction that Fitz had in Bingtown that he talked to the fool about of seeing the live ships and the grim magic. And we had asked what his reaction was to Paragon in the last trilogy when he met him. And Nicholas chimed in and said he didn't really have much of a reaction to Paragon besides like, hey, that guy looks like me. This is weird.
Right.
But he had met a live ship before that, and that was Tarman.
Yes, and Tarman specifically speaks to Fitz. And this also clears up some questions that we've been having on and off about who the dragon is that has claimed Fitz that keeps getting mentioned throughout the trilogy. But according to Assassin's Fate, the Tarman says that the dragon that has claimed Fitz is Verity.
Yeah, well, he asks, it's not one of the dragons that you're thinking of, like Tintaglia or, Centaur that he was close to for a little bit or anything like that. And unbidden, Fitz thinks Verity, and Tarman's like, yep, it's that one.
Yes. And specifically, Tarman says it's an older dragon. It's one that you've personally groomed.
Yes.
And then later when he's like, Verity, he's thinking, is grooming counting when I brush the leaves off of him?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe, like, this is a deep connection, Tarman says. And it's so interesting to Fitz because he's like, what does it mean that he's saying that a stone dragon has claim to me? And is making a big deal about being helping somebody who's dragon claimed, even though it's like a delicate thing of not wanting to anger a dragon by another dragon talking to a dragon claimed human. So I found that to be really interesting, especially because Verity as dragon isn't a dragon, is just skill pillar, but maybe it's something to do. This is like a random thought I had when reading this quote that was sent in to us, or this little excerpt, is that maybe it has something to do with the fact that Verity is now so much skill.
Yeah, he's so much bigger than just Verity, the human was.
He's not, he isn't Verity the human. He is one with the skill in a lot of ways, especially being imbued into the stone.
Kettle is a part of that as well. And
so there's multiple memories on top of it and all of that. And so I wonder if that is why a dragon would assume it's a dragon claim. Because if we know, I mean, it seems in this book series that whenever you share pieces of yourself through magic, a little bit always remains. And we know that Verity, human Verity, used Fitz's goggles for like years and was riding with Fitz.
And they swapped bodies.
And they swapped bodies. And they so there's a lot of intertwining in that way. And then on top of that, becoming Verity as dragon, there's still going to be that connection there. There's that claim, I guess, in a way. And so I wonder if that's part of it too.
It's interesting.
Like nobody else would have that sort of relationship with at least nobody living with a stone dragon. And so it looks similar. There wouldn't be a lot of comparisons to be able to be made for the dragons to know that's not an actual dragon. That's a stone dragon. Because they claim they're very different.
Yes, but at the same time, it's still accepted by. And Tarman is like a unique sort of live ship, and live ships are a unique sort of consciousness that dragons probably wouldn't accept. Like a real live dragon probably would be like, you smell like another dragon, but it's not a real dragon, so like you're not claimed.
Yeah,
but live ships might accept it. I don't know how that would work. But
there seems to be some weird hierarchy that we're not. we don't know.
But the important part to the question that we had asked was, how did Fitz react to it? And apparently Fitz gets a very weird and strong mix of wit and skill as soon as he steps onto the boat.
Yeah.
So this was in conjunction with us talking about this grim magic of the live
Yes.
ships, and he would be uncomfortable being around. I like with him just kind of sensing that the wit and skill being mixed. I feel like it's just kind of, he can kind of sense all those memories or something. Something kind of reaches out to him, whether it is the wit and the skill combined or one or the other. Something kind of reaches out to him, connects to him, and like, this is too many things. And it
Yeah.
shouldn't be like this.
I mean, it does say in the excerpt that we were sent, it does say that when Tarman closes himself off to Fitz, Fitz says it feels like the door to an inn shutting. A bunch of people were in a room that you were talking to somebody in, and then the door shuts and you don't hear anything anymore, which does imply that there's a lot of that background chatter of the other memories, right? That he's feeling all the individual memories and stuff.
But that's if the live ships were kind of reaching out.
Yeah.
And Fitz was on Tarman's deck, reach and touching the wizard wood.
Yes.
So it's hard.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know how much he senses. At least when there's a mutual reaching out, he can tell that there's a multitude, but maybe not like individually what they are, like being in a crowd. So that's interesting to think on. And I cannot wait until we get there, although that's years out.
Yeah, it's a while out now.
So thank you, Niklas. And then finally, we have a message on Instagram, or DM on Instagram, from Peculiar Ponies. And it is to do with the skill. And they believe that the skill seems to suggest that it inherits similar to recessive gene, and that recessive traits have to be passed on from both parents so they can stay hidden for generations within a family until two carriers of the gene have kids. But if you have inbreeding in a family with that trait, more and more people will get it. This used to be a problem in royal families and the recessive genes that caused illnesses and disorders in Europe. It doesn't completely make sense within the whole lore, since it would be quite unlikely that both Fitz, Netiful, and Dutiful would be skilled if that was the case. That would mean Fitz's mom, Molly, and Ketcherkin all had to be random carriers of the gene that's supposed to be rare. But it is interesting that it was mentioned in this way.
And I think it's kind of like a combo of things, you know? But that it makes sense in a general way to describe how we think it works, but it's also...
I would almost say that means that it can't be recessive. Maybe it's not a recessive trait. Maybe it's a dominant one.
True.
Although wit seems to be like it might be a recessive trait if we think about Dutiful has the wit, and so does both of his parents, Fitz and Ketcherkin. But Nettle does not, because Molly is not witted. And some of Molly's kids are witted with Burek. So maybe, I don't know. I mean, I guess it'd be like two brown-eyed parents having a blue-eyed child. Like, it does. Maybe Molly's a carrier.
Or,
I don't know.
A black-haired person with a red-haired partner. They have one red-haired kid, you know? Like... So it's possible. It's just
way more rare. Yeah. Which makes sense when they have 5 kids, and of the 5 kids, only like one of them is witted. So I don't know. I would say, so I believe that it's recessive to be witted, but it's dominant for skill, because
I don't know if it's I mean, it is genetic for skill, but I still like I'm a sucker for like the mystery stuff, but like when the Out Islander blood meets the Six Duchies blood, you know?
Yeah.
And us talking about how it was like descendants of Elderlings that may be mixed, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, I think that still goes with the dominant thing, because then, you know, they have it. But it's also, I mean, if you think about like green eyes and blue eyes, like they're both similar, and I don't know. I feel like there's like a mixture of phenotypes. I think
because there's also different things. Like people can be susceptible to the skill or open, or they can be wells for like king's strength, or all sorts of different kinds of things. So.
I think it's a little bit more complicated than just typical. But if we were going to attribute it to one of those, I would say it'd be more likely to be dominant than recessive.
Very cool thought. Thank you very much, Peculiar Ponies.
Love thinking about things that way.
our last message came from Gil on Instagram, and Gil's gonna go a ways before they hear this. They were on episode 185, and they said we were talking about Jack coming on board to Paragon, and just wanted to note that I picture Jack and Lacey the same way, and also Brashen and Verity. Don't know why. That's just how it works. And I wanted to make a comment about that because like brains are so weird. Like sometimes it just does that. Lacey and Jack would not be two pairings that I would put together.
I see it.
But Brashen and Verity, I would see, you know?
I see Lacey and Jack. I feel like Jack is a younger version of Lacey. I get it.
Yeah.
I like that.
But it's funny how like there's only so many descriptions that like sometimes you can hold in your mind.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this person is just going to be a copy of this other person.
Yeah, that's fair. I love that. Very fun. We love hearing from all you guys. And thank you everyone who writes in. And also just special shout out to anybody who writes in where English isn't your first language. Amazing. And don't ever feel bad if you want to write in, but you feel like your grammar or whatever isn't good enough. Trust me, it's great. It's better than mine most of the time. I feel like every single person who writes in and is like, English is my second language, but like, so I'm sorry. I'm like, I don't notice a single mistake. And to be fair, there might be them there. I'm not good at it. So
okay, English major.
I literally have an English degree. This is like a running joke in our household that I am the worst at grammar, but somehow got a literature degree. So I say all that to say, we get the heart of the message and are never, ever going through with our red pens being like, that's not how I would say it. So if you have been wanting to write in, but you're afraid that your English isn't up to par, please feel free. We will write you back if we don't understand. And we can work it out together. So thank you guys so much for writing in. We appreciate all of you. And we can't wait to hear from you next week.